So, good morning, everybody, and thank you, Alessia. I think this announcement of the scoutbee financing round of $60 million is a great kickoff of our panel, which is about innovation in the industry sector by tech. So let me try to frame it a bit before I kick off the panel. So what we are focusing on are two important pieces of the value chain, procurement and logistics. And I want to give you one example. Think about the automotive industry. So it's not only about creating and designing new products and engines. It's also about innovation in logistics and procurement. And I want to give you a 2-minute helicopter perspective. I think it's important if we discuss about it. And as you can see on the slide, these two markets are two of the 3 biggest markets globally. So think about logistics and procurement are $30 trillion yearly in market size. And for us as investors, this is always good news. But then if we have a look on the investment activity in these two categories, you can see there's a mismatch. For example, procurement, the space where Gregor is in, and Gisbert. So we have a market size of 18 trillion, but in the last 10 years, just 2 billion of investment from VCs like us. And that is exactly what we want to discuss. Because if you take into comparison, for example, the retail e-commerce segment, 20 billion investments in the last 20 years, 10 times more. And we have to ask ourselves, us as investors, and the corporates, of course, as well, why does that happen? And I want to kick it off in asking Gisbert. Klöckner is a company which is more than 100 years old. It has more than 8,500 employees. And Gisbert is an innovator in the supply chain platform management, especially in steel. And I want to ask you as a kickoff of the discussion, is it right to say that the supply side is not innovated properly? And can you give some examples from your business so that we can understand?
Yeah, the supply side in our industry is indeed very traditional. So innovations in the steel and metals phase were always focused on the product or on the process to produce steel, but never really on the supply side. And for instance, most of the communication through all these different levels, from the producer through the distributor or service centers, finally to the manufacturers, all this communication is still very much done by fax, by the latest innovation, so to say, was email 30 years ago. And there are some ADI applications, but ADI is also, I don't know, at least 40 years old. So there were never really any innovations on the supply side. And with this, the information flow in our industry is several times interrupted. And because of this, we're shipping a lot of steel around everywhere in Europe or also in other regions. And we have to stock a lot of steel. This is, for instance, what we do as a distributor, steel distributor or stockholder. We have to stock. Currently, we're stocking more than 1 million tons of steel because we have to provide availability. And because we don't know, because of this interrupted information flow, what the demand really is, we have to stock all this steel. So there is a lot of waste in our industry, and this has practically not changed within the last 100 years. Now, Klöckner was founded in 1906. And when you see pictures from warehouses or steel warehouses at that point in time, they are not so much different than today.
Okay, and if we switch to the logistic side, So, David, you have you founded a startup which is now just 5 years old. So, and how about innovation in freight forwarding? So, how is the situation today compared to 20 years before?
Christoph, you might remember a slide that I pitched to you before you invested, and I typically use two pictures when I present sennder. One is illustrating logistics office in the 20 years ago, and you see a lot of paper, you see fax machine, you see two phones on the table, and an old computer. And then the second picture I show is how it looks today, and it looks exactly the same. It's just instead of black and white, it's a colored picture that I took in a logistics office that I visited. In fact, today, we already heard fax machines are still used to manage orders and send out orders. Phone calls are made to determine the approximate position, in our case, of trucks, and everything is still paper-based. Probably the only thing that changed in the past 20, 30 years in these logistics offices is that smoking is not any longer allowed in there.
That's good. Good to know. And Gregor, from your side, you have also worked in the sourcing and procurement old business world. So how is it in your case?
Quite the same as in logistics. So it seems like the procurement logistic sphere was always the driven force and never the driving force. Even the terminology Industry 4.0 was always related to production and to the product itself. If you take a look into sales, 10, 15 years ago, there was this CRM moment where there were a lot of innovation going on, and we today have online marketing specialists, we have online sales specialists, we have SEO and so on. So a lot of tech was flowing into sales in general, just because it was always revenue and or product driven. In supply chain, logistics and procurement, there was literally zero innovation. That means that even today, where there is big data, where there are technologies out there, procurement specialists, also at bigger OEMs, when they are, for example, looking for new suppliers around the globe, they still use Google, Bing, Excel, email, PowerPoint, and then usually then probably onboard 5, 10, 15 interns in order to fly them around the globe to find, discover, and audit the right supplier. So overall, most of the innovations over the last couple of decades were flowing either in the production or the sales departments.
And if we think about your tech solutions, so your ingredients, AI, GPS data, so can you, maybe Gregor, you kick it off and then just quickly run through what is the solution, what kind of tech are you using, and what is different to the, let's say, old-fashioned solutions?
Okay, maybe quickly describe the problem. So let's assume you want to open an online shop for jewelry and you want to purchase this jewelry from Italy or from China and you have no idea about the sphere. The first thing that you need is probably a supplier. And today, to find a supplier, most people use simply Google, Excel, PowerPoint, as I said before. But there's very little data available about two very important questions. So first, is that supplier the right one for my product? And second, is this supplier trustworthy? And if you found out or answered both of those questions with a yes, it's still extremely difficult for you to interact with those suppliers. So we automate all of this. That means we give our customers a very deep insight about the suppliers that are out there in the industry and answer questions like, what are the certifications, what are the products? What is the revenue, who are the customers, etc. And as soon as they found it very attractive, we help them onboard the supplier and help them collaborate and cooperate online. So that means that we streamline the process that usually took 6 months in the past and probably 150 hours of work to roughly 4 to 5 weeks in a total of 10 hours of work. That's what we do.
And just a quick question, is the customer saying, yes, that's fine, I use it, or is there some, let's say, some people in the team who say that is too much onboarding, too much work? Just quickly.
It's very difficult in B2B in general to place digital products. So there are a certain set of 5 to 10% companies out there that really drive digitalization and they take it seriously, but the other 80 to 90% are not yet there, and especially not their workforce. They are quite resistant to change regarding digitalization.
And Gisbert, because there's some overlapping to Gregor's approach, so you have created a super innovative marketplace for steel called XOM, which is a great innovation. So can you quickly describe and how you try to, in terms of go-to-market, you try to enter the market?
Yeah, what we did, by the way, we started first with Klöckner itself about 5 to 6 years ago, a digital transformation of our own business. So we doing, meanwhile, 30% of our sales digitally, which is much more than everyone else in this industry. And with this incumbent knowledge, so to say, we launched 2 years ago this platform called XOM Materials. So in principle, this platform connects all suppliers and customers within our industry, but it's not as easy as it sounds. So it's not that you can only swap, if you like, the Amazon model to B2B, because look, we have large customers who have completely different needs than smaller ones. We supply the automotive industry, which works completely different than, let's say, the construction industry. We have customers who only want to buy one piece of steel spot. We have customers who have to buy a machinery company, for instance, 100, 200 different items spot. We have spot customers, we have contract customers, so all kinds of different customers, and we have to fulfill these needs. And the learning in B2B is that if you don't hit really a pain point of the customer or the supply side, your platform will not scale. And with this, so far, attempts in our industry fail typically because they will not really hit a pain point. And we found a way with our platform to digitalize our customers without the need of any changes on their side, because in this B2B space, people are typically extremely change resistant. So you have to find a way to bring them on the platform at the first stage, in the first stage at least, without any need to change anything. So they even can send us a fax, and we digitalizing the fax, and we make then a digital RFQ out of this fax. When you are not able to do that, you will not scale.
And what kind of tech are you using? Is it just a marketplace solution? Are you using AI tech? Or?
No, it's very much AI driven. So what we have to do, so when a customer sends us an email, an unstructured email, we have to transform this digitally and then make the interpretation, which is not easy because it's a completely unstructured document. And then we have to match it to our product catalog, which is also not easy because there are there are different names, there are no standards in steel for names. And with this, we have to match it, and we also have to automatic price it, which is also not easy because prices in the steel industry are extremely volatile. And so we're using very much here AI technology to solve these problems.
And David, so you are in the logistics space where you connect, let's say, small truck owner family business with large customers on the other side. So you have developed a solution or different solutions, but if it comes to implementing the tech for example, on this small family-owned truck companies with 5 to 10 trucks, how does it work? How do you convince these small companies to use your innovative tech?
This reminds me of our initial hypothesis where we said we just develop an app, yeah, and then we have full visibility and transparency, and we can pass on the data from the trucking companies to our big shippers, Siemens, Scania, and so on and so forth. Reality is completely different. I think the biggest challenge we face today is not really developing the technology, but is the adoption of the technology. A lot of our stakeholders, both on the carrier side as well as on the shipper side, are truly afraid of using new technology and changing modus operandi. With the app, we quickly realized that most of the truck drivers don't have a smartphone. Super surprising. If they have one, it's their private smartphone, and they want to use it for their boss that they don't like. If you convince them with a McDonald's voucher to use the app, then the operating system they have on their phone is too old, and if you get everything done there on the phone, and you don't get, let's say, the signal and information you need. So the biggest challenge we have today is not really only developing the technology, but it's much more the adoption of this technology.
And if it comes to tech, let's say tracking the truck, for example, having real-time data, so you have these hired truck drivers, and you have a truck, maybe there's no GPS measurement installed. So how do you solve that problem that the tech is not ready?
So in the US, you have owner-operators that are entrepreneurs and they drive the truck they own, and they are, let's say, more willing to adapt technology such an app. In Europe, most of the truck drivers are employees, and they just get the salary and they're not incentivized in trying something new. So for the time being, we almost parked the app idea. We now started sending out mobile phones with the app pre-installed. We are testing now something new, which we're installing tablets and iPads in the truck so that the truck drivers in the evening can stream Netflix or whatever if they use the app during the day. So try to put some gamification on top of it. And the other thing that is surprising in this industry is that 98% of all trucks that are out there, the big ones, have a telematics system, a GPS system installed. But in less than 8% of the cases, this GPS data is passed on either to the forwarder or to the shipper. And this is what we're trying now to address with, yeah.
And one quick more question. So by aggregating such a massive, so massive data points, and having in mind that more than 50% of the trucks are driving empty in Europe, so how can you optimize efficiency in that industry by data?
So as you said, most of the trucks that you see on the roads are completely empty. It's crazy to think. And the reason is there's information asymmetry. Yeah? If orders come in by a fax or by a phone call, or if they're sophisticated through an email, of course, it's difficult to combine loads in an efficient way. So where we use technology and algorithm to improve the status quo is, for example, by combining loads in a much more efficient way. If a truck drives from A to B, we have the information that in B or close to B there's another load. We can do this, let's say, through an algorithm, through a machine, and this increases the efficiency, also decreases the cost per transaction, and also decreases CO2 reduction.
Good. And Gregor, on your side, you are crawling websites, you're getting port data and other data points. In what kind of way is data creating efficiency if it comes to supply side management in procurement and sourcing?
I think that's massive. I would even go that far that's saying that 5 to 10 years ago it was not even possible. Especially our topic to recommend suppliers to customers is extremely complicated because you cannot do it on a keyword base. So you have, for example, a metal manufacturer that produces metal for jewelry, and you have the metal manufacturer that produces metal for automotive. They probably have the exact same keywords on the website. It will be probably some kind of steel, aluminium, CNC, drilling, milling, so quite similar. So you need a lot of more data points in order to do actually these recommendations. And you need then data points like...
how many data points how many suppliers are you aggregating about?
So in total, we have roughly 9 million suppliers in our database, and we are going up to 700 dimensions. So 700 different kind of dimensions in order to make recommendations. The most meaningful data points, however, are, for example, who are the customers and who are the suppliers, what are certifications. But you should not then stop on thinking about, okay, who is the customer, but you should get data points again about what is the customer about. Is it automotive? How large is it? And so on. You can combine it with or compare it with a social network. So today we get extremely targeted advertisement on Facebook and on Amazon, and the reason is because they know a lot of features about us. What's our age? What are our preferences? Who am I connected with? What country do I live in? And all of that can be also mirrored into the B2B industry, and that's what we are trying to do.
Gisbert, I would like to know, so you have created this massive marketplace. So on the one hand, what are the next steps in terms of innovation? And in terms of financing it, what is your plan? So it could be a corporate finance solution, it could be an independent play. So what is your long-term vision for creating this kind of platform?
Yeah, so first of all, we are adding other services like financing, for instance, that customers have immediately the possibility to finance a purchase, or insurance, so connection then, but in a way that we connect here with a third-party platform. So we don't want to do it by ourselves. We want to connect here our platform with other platforms. In terms of finance, so currently we are financing the platform by ourselves, so Klöckner 100%, but we know that we have to make this platform at some point in time within the next 2 or 3 years independent from Klöckner, because, and this it's an open platform. So competitors are selling their products on the platform as well, and Klöckner itself has no preference on the platform. So we are a third-party purchaser or buyer on the platform like everyone else. And we also have the agreement here from the approval from the German cartel authorities to do that, because there are customer data on the platform, but we had to put a Chinese wall between us and the platform. But nevertheless, we think that is a business which has to scale separately from Klöckner, because also, when this platform is successful going forward, the valuation will be much higher than Klöckner itself. I mean, we talking here about markets alone in Europe. It's a 150 billion market, only steel and metals, and in the US as well. And we launched the platform in Europe and also in the US. And also in the US, we are the leading player with this platform. So that shows also, by the way, that you also can develop something in Europe which is then successful in the US as an internet platform. Huh? But we want to make the platform independent, and we will do this most probably with financial investors to make it really independent, not with strategic investors, because then it could also be seen as an incumbent platform. We want to make it completely independent.
Very good. I have one last question to you in terms of support in the German or European ecosystem for your innovative approaches. So you feel like you are supported from different stakeholders beside investors. So how do you, compare to the US or Asian markets, how do you feel that your approach is supported from a political side, from other stakeholders?
Should I start? It's definitely getting better. So especially VCs are picking up more and more B2B investment, but you saw the data on your own. It's quite insignificant if you compare it to total B2C investments. I think the responsibility is here more on the corporation side. So we have customers in automotive, in metal, in retail, in pharma, in biotech, and chemicals. And I think the strength of Europe and on Germany was always that the corporations, when they picked it up, they took it seriously. We are not there yet. I think as soon this movement starts, we will see a much faster progression. But for time being, I think we're on a good way.
If you look at 3 dimensions, startup ecosystem, funding availability, and government support, I would say on the ecosystem side, doing really, really well. I think Berlin, Paris, London, and also Munich have created very cool places where you start a company, where you get the support you need. I think on the funding side, early stage, there's definitely a lot of money. I think for later stage growth, there's not yet enough money. If you compare it to the US and also to China, I think still startups prefer today to have a big US-American investor rather than a German or European investor for the growth phase, and I think that has to change. And on the government side, I think I would wish for more. I would wish for more speed and more support.
Gisbert, from your side.
Yeah, we interestingly, by the way, don't care about the government side. Because this is finally a platform. We initiated the platform here in Germany, but it's a global platform in the end, and without any help from any government or government solutions. And so we supported the platform so far by ourselves. What we need going forward to make it independent is support from financial investors. What we have seen here is that a lot of them also in the VC space have difficulties still with B2B I met last year one of the most famous investors in the Silicon Valley, and he was saying to me, look, it sounds to be a great platform, but I don't have any judgment for B2B. And this is what I've seen quite often, which is surprising when you see how big these markets are. So I think, especially also for your industry, the possibilities here are enormous, and there is a lot of space is here completely untapped currently.
Very good. Time for one last quick question from the auditorium, maybe. Anyone has a question? Okay, that's not the case. So then I have to say thank you for these three innovative approaches, two from Greenfield startup, one as a corporate approach. I have to say I really like the space, B2B, supply, procurement and logistics space, and I would really like it if this is a more common space of investments in the future, and we are trying to be really pushy in that market. Thanks for your attention, and bye-bye.